Welcome to Bear Download. I'm Rich Campbell along with Dan Wiederer here at Hallis Hall on Monday, surveying the carnage from Sunday night's 55-14 loss to the Green Bay Packers. Dan, the news today, no changes to Marc Trestman's coaching staff. Jay Cutler will remain the starting quarterback. What do you make of everything going forward?
Yeah, look, that's not what people in the public want to hear. They wanted heads on a platter today. They wanted to hear that there was going to be some changes, that there was going to be a shakeup, anything to give them the indication that this sort of mediocrity, this sort of failure will not be tolerated. We didn't get that message from Marc Trestman, who continues to offer a vote of confidence for Mel Tucker as defensive coordinator, for the rest of his coaching staff. I think the hardest part right here for the Bears right now is they seem stuck. You're out of the playoff picture. You're 3-6. You're with a head coach and a quarterback who you're running with. You're with a coaching staff that you're running with. So these next 7 weeks are going to be a little bit hard to stomach because you're going to need to see progress without a lot of internal shakeup.
Also, not a lot of obvious answers.
Right.
Marc Trestman is looking at a disconnect between what he perceives to be quality, clean practices and these mistake-filled games on both sides of the ball. You have turnovers, you have fundamental breakdowns, you have guys not getting checks, you guys not carrying out their motion responsibilities, like he mentioned Alshon Jeffrey early in the game yesterday. These things are adding up to such a lopsided embarrassment like we saw yesterday. What's the answer? I think one thing that's interesting to remember for fans that are looking for rolling heads here is that Marc Trestman was an assistant coach for a long time in the NFL.
Yeah.
He has a sense of empathy for these assistants. He says, I believe in them. I believe in their ability to educate players and their work ethic. And that's something he's going to carry with him from a first-person point of view.
Certainly, and it's a fair point.
Yeah.
That doesn't help get you answers towards becoming a better football team, and that's what the Bears really need to zero in on. Marc Trestman today basically said that they're going to dig back into Week 2 film on the 49ers, find a moment of success that they can draw on, look at the Jets game, look at the Falcons game, and show these guys, hey, we have won, we have played clean games, we have done good things. Now we got to figure out how to do it more regularly. But at this point, after a 3-game losing streak, and not just a 3-game losing streak, the way these losses have piled up, Rich, you've had lopsided losses in New England and Green Bay, and obviously a disappointing home loss to the Dolphins. It's troubling, and Marc Trestman has used the phrase disturbing about a half-dozen times since the end of that game at Lambeau Field, and that's not the word you want your head coach to be offering up after a bye week, after a point in the season where you thought you had answers.
Right, and I think you look at this from an organizational perspective higher than Marc Trestman. You want to do whatever is the best thing that's going to help you beat the Minnesota Vikings. They have to beat the Vikings in the next game. It's the only thing you can do, win the next game. But what's the best way to go about that? Is changing your defensive coach, is changing your head coach going to be that spark? It's very difficult for me to say yes.
Well, the other thing for people to understand is this is mid-season. You don't just go digging into a bag of tricks and find answers. And you're absolutely right on that end, because the more you start doing this knee-jerk things, the more you show that you don't have a compass on how to get out of the wilderness. And that's what I meant earlier when I said that they're stuck, because you are just sort of stuck stomaching what they are this year, and you kind of got that feeling in the locker room that they're starting to come to an acceptance that this year is lost, and we just have to swallow that for 7 more weeks.
Right, and 7 more weeks, there's an endpoint on that. There's obviously going to be some changes if things continue the way they are, and we'll just have to get to that point. It's going to be a painful march to get there. We'll stay covering this whole thing, ChicagoTribune.com, so stay tuned for updates. For Dan Wiederer, I'm Rich Campbell, and we'll see you next time.